So here's how my day's been going so far. Uh, this morning I woke up and I always check my messages. I use my I'm lucky enough to have a smartphone that allows me to keep up with the comments and messages that the channel gets. It's part of how I'm able to keep up with comments at a subscriber and viewership level a little bit beyond what other people sort of tap out at. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the interaction and everything else. But a digital 0069, aka Daddy Oka. Man, I love mangling people's YouTube names. 69 sent me a video. And it would be one that I wouldn't have normally watched. And it was Desarty one in his farewell YouTube thing. And I'm not gonna share with you what Digital put in the message, but it wasn't anything harsh or anything like that. It was a little bit endearing. And I'm glad I saw that video. If y'all don't know, Desarty1, DSARTI, and the number 1. If you want to check out his channel, it'll be his latest video. I didn't look to see if he monetized it or not. Not that that's necessarily important, but it might be. People do and say and share things for all kinds of reasons. It might be a little soon to talk about it, but it's a hot topic, and I think it's one that bears mentioning, as it has some keys to survival, mental health, and mental survival. Now, I'm not talking about Dave's situation right now at all. This is just what is it called, a learning moment. In survival of any sort, and I would assume it would hold true for the squirrels who are gathering their nuts. It is very, very important to keep your mental faculties and your mental structure intact. It is very important to keep your line of normalcy and your line of personal morality intact. Where the mind goes, the body follows. That's a fact. And I don't know how it works. I believe it works this way for law enforcement and other top tier operations. But in military operations, there's usually a very structured and very involved set of psychiatrists and psychologists monitoring Marines and soldiers and sailors and airmen to ensure their mental health in these stressful situations. If people lose the structure of their mentality, they lose focus on the mission, and they are as good as lost. And it holds true on a personal level as well. If all your mission is to survive and continue to eat, then that's not necessarily living. And then when those things are taken from you and you lose them, then you lose sight of your core directives. And you can profess guidelines all you wish. However, it is your behavior that's judged. So these things are monitored by experts. Do people get railroaded? Yeah, probably. Do people fall from through the cracks? Yeah, most definitely. But I want to encourage you to watch. If you have Netflix or the ability to watch it, it's a documentary called 2 Weeks in Hell. and it deals with the selection process for uh, U.S. Army Special Forces. These are the Green Berets, which are beyond. This is a good way to get your ass kicked, but they're they're beyond Army Rangers. Oh man, uh, if you know what I'm talking about, you're laughing now too. Uh, there's a there's a healthy rivalry going between Rangers and Special Forces. Now, a Special Forces person could be Ranger qualified, but a pure Ranger isn't necessarily a Special Forces person. I'll leave it at that. But it's a very interesting rivalry, and it's honestly, I think it's mission based as to which as to which warrior is necessary in the given environment. Uh, for example, Special Forces people, they work with with the indigenous people as trainers and advisors, and an Army Ranger is a battlefield leader within our own forces. Not that they don't do some indigenous operations, but I think you get the gist of it. But at these levels, and especially with the Special Forces, Force Recon in the Marine Corps has this as well, where you operate within the indigenous people so much that there is a temptation, or not a temptation, but there's a probability, an existent probability that you can lose your mental structure, and that could be bad. That could be really bad. Uh, in in my last video, where I came off a little bit harsh, I talked about uh, preppers being beyond the norm, and then to standardize deviation, and then to take your scenarios even further is potentially unhealthy. Imagine imagine the processes of your mind as being like a highway system, and ideas travel from one location to another. These things can be measured, believe it or not, in the way that the mental synapses are stored and all that other good stuff. The more the more an idea pathway is traveled, the greater that highway is built. Just like between two towns, the more travel between two towns, the more people are apt to build a highway. So you continue to visit these scenarios and visit these fantasies over and over and over again. And this network of processes develops in your mind. Where it becomes unhealthy is in the present, what you have built in your mind through your own stimulus, meaning your own input and your own thoughts, may not be the scenario of the present that we function in. And the people who have their network and thought processes well within the present and are trained to recognize when people's thought processes are going outside of that will declare that as a possible mental health issue. The bottom line is it saves lives. It does. Again, people do fall through the cracks, and people are railroaded for various reasons. But that is why there are checks and balances. But as the individual, you need to do your part, and you need to recognize your mental and emotional health as every bit as important as any other aspect of your preparation for disaster, your preparation for survival. If I am in a high risk environment, there are processes and structures in my logic that will have to exist. If I have a given task in a high risk environment, and the people on my team do not have those processes and that logic well intact, and a person doesn't see the logic of the process, and they don't believe in logic at all after a while because of the the network system that I was telling you about mentally has begun to break down, then they are no longer an asset to the mission. They are a liability. One thing that is able to happen readily with the YouTube and probably other forums and other social networking is people of a survivalist mentality. There's a potential, a high potential to standardize the aberrance of their outlook. The average society person believes in that on-time delivery. They believe in shopping for a maximum of 2 weeks of groceries, and that's on the high end. And they are entertained by watching television and sports and everything else. They don't think about where the cheeseburger comes from and everything else. When you step outside of that, you will stick out. You need to make sure your logic is sound, and you need to appreciate that based on historical premises, the people within the norm have a reason to exercise caution to those who step outside of it. You need to keep your feet on the ground and your head into reality. I'll be talking about this further, and I have some diagrams that could possibly illustrate this a little bit better than what I'm just saying. But you just got to think. And when you have a reason for doing something, like let's say you have a desire to put away 3 years worth of foodstuffs and every sort of supply you could possibly think of that you would need for the next 3 years. If your purpose for putting away that foodstuff is because you want to, and you're uncomfortable or scared, or there's something that you don't understand, then you need to look at the root cause of that motivation. You need to constantly hold the root cause of your motivation up to the light. You need to be able to share it logically with another person, not necessarily to convince them, but you just got to keep your shit together, man. Hmm. So, we're at 14, coming up on 14 minutes now. So, I suppose if I haven't made my point yet, then I won't be able to necessarily. But look for that thing. What I want to do. I want to wait till the dust settles around Dave and people sort of go on to another subject before I bring this up again. But I wanted to get this up and let you guys hear my thoughts and my understanding and my education in this process. So y'all take care and stay healthy. Definitely stay healthy.